Who is Dr. Jesse Aronstein, and why is he so critical in the lives of you and your family right now? This is Scott Ryan here, and hopefully you're seeing this video before attending the webinar, because I want to spend some time with you to show you some things you'll need to know. It will give you a solid foundation going into this seminar, a confidence knowing my information is accurate, correct, and the best for you and your family. I'm going to tell you who Dr. Aronstein is and his accreditations and expertise. I will show you how good electricians can get sucked into installing bad products. I'll also reveal some of the shocking truths of how some electrical products proven to be dangerous are approved by institutions formed to protect us. You may not know of scientist-engineer Dr. Jesse Aronstein, but he is considered a giant in the electrical connections industry. If you want to know why his information I cover in this webinar is so critical to you and your family, then this video is for you. I will show you how Dr. Aronstein fits into the residential aluminum wiring industry and why the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, relies so heavily on his research and advice for their recommendations to the public in their report, Repairing Aluminum Wiring. It is my goal in this video to convince you of his expertise so you will rely on his recommendations as well. Let's take a look at a little history about him. He has his Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering, BME, from City College of New York. He has his Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, MSME, from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. He also has his PhD in Materials Science from Rensselaer. At the time of this writing, he is a licensed professional engineer in New York State. At the General Electric Company, he was engaged in the development and testing of liquid propellant rocket engines. Now let me just stop here for a second. Did you get that? I just want to point it out in case you missed it. In his early career, Dr. Aronstein was a rocket scientist. He was working on top-secret experiments that led to the development of rocket technology that eventually took us to the moon. Yes, he is an old guy, but he is still working as an engineering consultant at the time of this recording, despite being long past what most people would consider retirement age. He is a dedicated individual and still very much involved in this aluminum wiring arena. Back to his resume. At IBM Corporation, he held engineering and management positions related to the development of advanced testing and manufacturing equipment for semiconductor chips. He was vice president of special engineering projects with Wright Malta Corporation, involved in the development of specialized manufacturing and test equipment, and in the investigation of the performance of aluminum wire terminations and the fire hazards which result from overheating connections. He was a consulting engineer, involved primarily with electrical equipment failure and safety analysis. He has 19 patents in his name and received several invention and achievement awards for his work at IBM. And here's 19 of those patents that I just found online by typing in Jesse Aronstein patents. Dr. Aronstein has also authored more than 25 papers relating to electric contact technology, most of which involve studies in the nature of the aluminum contact interface and the behavior of practical aluminum connections. Okay, so here are just 14 of those aluminum wiring reports or papers. And these particular papers were presented to places like the CPSC, the electrical conferences that were around the country at that time. Here's another one, electrical fires, and then down here we had one that was with electrical contacts, 45th IEEE Home Conference. So these are all peer-reviewed documents that he had. That means that they were subject to review from other scientists and engineers in this particular field, and they could actually check his work out and make sure that he was doing it correctly. It's the way scientists work. Some of these were used in court cases, and there was one for sure I knew was used in a court case up here in Canada, was this particular one. And that is in Scarborough, Toronto, summary report, studying of overheating of aluminum wired electrical receptacles in Scarborough, Toronto homes. There was some outfit called something like Concerned Citizens or Citizens for Electrical Safety or something like that. He told me, and I just don't quite remember what it was. But he did that back in 1982. And we've also got to show you the little one here. This one here, he did. This was the evaluation of a twist-on connector for aluminum wire, that's when he did the study on the little purple twist-on connector, or wire nut, and determined that it was not suitable for a permanent fix of aluminum wiring problems. And then also this one here is evaluation of a set screw connector for aluminum wire. This is when he did his testing and review of the Alumicons, showing it to be positive for a aluminum wire retrofitting permanent solution. And then, of course, his now famous and the sort of groundbreaking, well, not groundbreaking, but it's the report that's written for the rest of us. All of these are written for other scientists and so on in the community. This one's written for us. This one's written for electricians, you and I, to be able to understand the recommendations that he puts out there in how to fix the aluminum wiring fire hazards. And that one goes all the way up to 2011. He's been updating that over the decades, and this is the most recent rendition of that. Dr. Aronstein is responsible for the studies of over 7,500 aluminum wiring connections of all types and the products and the methods to properly correct them. He conducted his research at both Wright Malta and in his own engineering contract business. In the early 1970s, the United States government, through the CPSC, learned aluminum wiring connections were burning down homes and taking lives. On November 4, 1975, as is their way of operating, the CPSC submitted an open invitation to public and corporate entities alike in the United States to find solutions to this problem, so it could compile it and warn the public of the hazards and inform them of the proper repairs. Several companies and institutions offered their services in response to the invitation. Some of them include, but are not limited to, Franklin Research Institute, Institute for Applied Technology, National Bureau of Standards, Structural Integrity Associates, Wright Malta Corporation. Many engineers, scientists, researchers, and authors working with and independent of the aforementioned institutions participated in researching and providing papers and recommendations as well. I won't read these names out to you. You're not likely going to know who they are, but if you want to, just take a quick look at them. Although all these people and companies responded and produced valuable research, all saying fundamentally the same thing, one name stands out above all: Dr. Jesse Aronstein. I already mentioned the CPS report entitled Repairing Aluminum Wiring, which is highly reliant on Dr. Aronstein's research and recommendations. As a result of his work, he was respected at the highest levels. Here's a log of a meeting requested by him where 20 people from the United States CPSC and representatives from key institutions and manufacturers related to the aluminum wiring industry attended. Okay, I just want to show you kind of the pull that Dr. Aronstein has here. Back in 1995, he called a meeting. He contacted the U.S. government through the CPSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, and he wanted to have a meeting specifically regarding the twist-on wire connectors for aluminum wire as presented by Dr. Jesse Aronstein. So these are the participants from the CPSC, 7 people from that commission. And then here, the non-CPC participants, there are some heavy hitters in here. We've got AMP. These are the people that make the one of the connectors that is very popular. And we've also got a fellow from the Independent Electrical Contractors Association, Alcan Cable. This is a major aluminum company down in the United States. Then there's a law firm representing the Aluminum Association, Underwriters Laboratories, the American Society of Home Inspectors, Product Safety Letter, and Legal Regulatory Affairs, Underwriters Laboratories again, and Ideal Industries. They're one of the they are the manufacturers of one of the connectors that is being talked about in this meeting. And so at the request of Dr. Aronstein, he wanted to take this meeting, put this meeting together for the purpose of discussing his views on the subject of twist-on wire connectors for aluminum wire. Although I did highlight a lot of the stuff here, I don't want to go into a lot of detail because this is already a fairly long video and I want to keep it relatively short. But I just kind of wanted to outline to you the pull that he has. Here he is critical of the Underwriters Laboratory standard for safety. I mean, Underwriters Laboratory is a huge outfit that provides approvals or listings of electrical products. That means they list it. It's going to be used throughout the United States. He's talking about these aluminum wire failures have occurred in a substantial number of aluminum wire connections in less than a year of test time using currents at or below the circuit rating and with on-off duty cycles, blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit technical. And then we have also the representatives of these companies that are manufacturing these products putting forth their perspective. And then here it is. It's the details of the meeting itself. And then after, let's see, and here's the CPS publication I have mentioned, number 516, Repairing Aluminum Wiring, that relies heavily on Dr. Aronstein's recommendations. And this is one of the meetings that helped put the right information in here. One of the things in here is that Ideal is trying to get their product accepted by the CPSC as a repair for aluminum wiring problems. And let's see. What else? These are, this is some information. This is a letter from that was on October 10th. So the first one was in September. This is October 10th. He wrote a letter back because I guess they wanted to have copies of the material that he provided at that meeting. So he's got all of the materials and lots of pictures here. A lot of these pictures you will have seen, and if you haven't, you'll see some of them in my presentation in the webinar. And some of it's pretty technical stuff. But it is very interesting, and this one here, this is a Moret. This is a very popular picture you'll find online, and certainly in my webinar. This is a huge burnout, and it's just glowing red here. I'll show that picture to you later in the webinar, if I remember. And so the conclusion is and they're talking about a twist-on connector, will fail in significant numbers in residential long-term service in the aluminum wire pigtailing application. So, heavy hitter, this fellow, Dr. Aronstein. Dr. Aronstein is considered an electrical connections expert, as the vast majority of his career was dedicated to the study of them. Because of his expertise, he was interviewed recently by NBC about another electrical fire hazard plaguing our nations: Federal Pacific electrical panels.
Dr. Aronstein is an expert on Federal Pacific circuit breakers. He's an engineer. He spent more than 20 years researching the problem, and he's testified in lawsuits against the now defunct company.
There is no inconsistency and no dispute as to the fact that they're defective.
Aronstein says tests by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and a number of other credible labs all proved Federal Pacific breakers are not reliable.
You can see the whole video by searching in YouTube with the keywords Aronstein Federal Pacific. It should be the first video that pops up. Dr. Aronstein's integrity is beyond reproach as well. Aside from his compensation as a scientist engineer and consultant, he was never and is not today involved in any enterprise to make money from his involvement in these studies. As a matter of fact, after I spent some time with him on Skype, I thought I would express my thanks for his time by buying him and his wife dinner at a restaurant in Schenectady, New York. I bought him a Groupon for a lousy $68, a mere token in light of the tremendous value he provided to me. After he hadn't used it for 3 years, I sent an email to remind him of it. He politely told me to get my money back because he wasn't going to use it. He doesn't ever want to be accused of accepting something that might make him partial to someone or some company. How cool is that? During the chat I had with him, he asked me not to quote him about what we discussed because he said there was no way he could say off the top of his head as well as he did in writing his papers and reports. However, I have a couple of snippets here of him talking to me about some other stuff. Although I cleaned up the audio a little bit, it still sounds a little funny. Firstly, I had to make sure I had the right guy.
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Aronstein.
Yes.
This is Scott here.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and then Dr. Aronstein laid out his rules of engagement.
The ground rules for this
Yes.
is we can discuss for hours here,
Yes.
as long as you wish. I will give you all the information and guidance I can. However, I will send you documents and reports as appropriate, as I'll take notes on what to send you. And if you wish to quote me in any of your presentations or write-ups or anything, you must do that from the documents and reports. In other words, my words in the documents and reports have been chosen very carefully, much better than I can do spontaneously persuasive to people and to be correct.
Although I won't be playing the entire interview, I'll get to some of the other stuff we talked about shortly. How well-meaning and talented master electricians get duped into installing bad products into your home. Now I'm going to show you how a master electrician can wind up using products and methods that have actually been proven to cause fire hazards. Then I'm going to cover how these products have been tragically approved by institutions we rely upon as consumers to protect us from dangerous products. Of the fact that aluminum wiring connections are potential fire hazards as installed during the mid-1960s to the mid-1970s in residential homes, there is no question. We are long past establishing that now. Everyone knows this. But now we have to repair the problem, don't we? Throughout 2013, I was working with a master electrician, a friend of mine, originally installing branch circuit wiring on brand new homes. I learned a lot from him and considered him a top-notch electrician with integrity. I was also developing advertising to generate more business for him. Because of those ads, we accidentally stumbled upon aluminum wiring repair. In 2014, he and I became partners and formed a company to deal exclusively with this problem, and I started to get our message out to the public. I was not an electrician, and other than what I had learned from this fellow during work in new homes, I knew nothing of the aluminum wiring issue we had stumbled upon. And despite my friend being a master electrician for decades, he was completely inexperienced in aluminum wiring, too. I know there are many talented master electricians out there with integrity and certainly mean no wrong or harm to anyone, like my partner. This can make it difficult for homeowners to decide who and or what products to go with. The electrician standing in their home at the moment seems absolutely sincere, honest, and quite knowledgeable about aluminum wiring. But he is saying something quite different about how to fix it than the electrician they saw online who seems just as sincere, honest, and knowledgeable. Here's how it happens. One obvious way to correct the aluminum wiring problem in a home is to replace the aluminum with copper wiring. You don't have to be an electrician to figure this out, but it is very expensive and time-consuming. However, there is a method called pigtailing that, if done correctly, is far more affordable and virtually just as safe and permanent as replacing with copper. I will cover this method more thoroughly in the webinar. The electrical trade is trained to be heavily reliant upon the electrical codes and approved products for their industry. And this just makes sense, doesn't it? Our government and the organizations responsible for certifying products safe for us will protect us, right? As far as I know, for the most part, that is true. But in a moment, I will reveal some shocking information so you can decide for yourself about their approval of aluminum wiring repair products. Here's how my top-notch master electrician friend determined what to use for pigtailing. He simply went to Home Depot and looked for a CSA-certified aluminum wire connector for pigtailing purposes and found aluminum-rated Moretz, a brand of twist-on connectors. And that was it. That was the extent of his research. As far as the installation of the Moretz was concerned, he simply relied on his experience with copper wire. He twisted the aluminum and copper stripped wires together with pliers and then twisted the Moretz on. No research whatsoever on how to properly install these twist-on connectors with aluminum. Dr. Aronstein told me that when aluminum was first introduced into the residential electrical market, the industry was instructed to treat it the same as copper, and this is why these fire hazards are now rampant today. For marketing purposes, and just after a few jobs, my partner then portrayed himself as the expert on aluminum wiring repair in Calgary and in Canada. And this is what many electricians do. They think they are in the right because the material is approved by CSA. Here is how I found that these ways and products were wrong to use. My master electrician friend was initially doing the estimates for the jobs of repairing the aluminum wiring problems in people's homes. However, there came a time for me to do them. For my presentations to prospective customers, I decided to educate myself about the aluminum wiring problem so I could at least sound knowledgeable. As I mentioned before, I knew almost nothing about aluminum wiring, but I had one major advantage. I was not an electrician and therefore not programmed in how to find the products to use. I was an outsider and went about doing my research quite differently than simply going to Home Depot and finding an aluminum-rated connector. Since my master electrician buddy was on the case, I had no reason to question the products and methods he insisted to use to fix these problems. However, 2 events occurred at this time to make me stop and review what we were doing. During my research, I started to find cracks in his belief of what products and methods to use. Then, during a presentation I was doing for a potential customer, she disagreed with our use of the Morettes. She told me it appeared to her that another product was the way to go. Needless to say, I was embarrassed because I was supposed to be the expert, and I had heard almost nothing about this other product. I hadn't done that much research yet. I decided there and then I would learn everything I could about aluminum wire repair so this would never happen to me again. I read reports, letters, minutes of meetings, court transcripts, studies, and scientific papers from Canada, United States, and Europe. I read transcripts of high-level hearings, investigations, and court trials involving aluminum wire giants, manufacturers of aluminum-related products, and government committees and commissions where Dr. Aronstein was brought in as an expert witness and his research was introduced as evidence. In addition to information I found myself, I read material Dr. Aronstein personally provided to me I wouldn't have found. I added them up, and all told, a minimum of 409 pages of material I devoured, and I still have a lot to go. I've watched hours of video online of both good and bad information, and I've lost count of the websites I've visited. And of course, I interviewed Dr. Aronstein himself for 2 hours. As it turns out, my insistent customer was right, and the master electrician I was working with was wrong. I'll be going into these products I've talked about here more in detail during the webinar, so I won't do it here. Not long after the company was formed, irreconcilable differences forced this master electrician and I to go our separate ways. I'll save the long and boring story. I considered hiring a master electrician specializing in the proper products I learned of and striking out on my own. However, there was a major obstacle blocking my way. Because of the seriousness and resultant legal exposure of working on these potentially deadly hazards, I changed my mind and decided not to engage in this specialty. Frankly, I chickened out. However, in the latter part of 2017, I was online checking out what was happening in this industry. I was appalled to find the legions of self-proclaimed experts in the aluminum wiring repair field promoting the exact products that are proven to fail and cause fires on a regular basis, as proven and documented by Dr. Aronstein. I discovered that most of these so-called experts rely solely on the fact that they are electricians and the authority their status conveys to gullible homeowners. They are promoting products and methods that will, if you use them as a permanent repair, endanger the lives of your family. There are thousands of views of YouTube videos made by idiots like this, and people are going to get hurt or worse. Reluctant as I was, this angered me so much, I decided to get back into it and get the right message out to owners of these aluminum-wired homes so families would not get hurt because of these faulty products and methods. One of the other reasons I figured I would get back into it was because of what Dr. Aronstein said himself, and I'll play that shortly. I took all the material I plowed through to learn about aluminum wiring hazards and how to repair them and boiled it all down to a 1-hour seminar so you don't have to do it yourself. I reveal how the fire hazards are created and exactly how you can repair them correctly, permanently, and affordably in the webinar. How these bad products were approved. There are governing bodies in both our countries who are responsible for approving or recommending electrical products. In the United States, the power lies with Underwriters Laboratories, UL, by listing a product. In Canada, that power lies in the hands of the Canadian Standards Association, CSA, by certifying a product. If UL or CSA gives their approval on an electrical item, a consumer or electrician is under the impression this product has been put through a rigorous gauntlet of testing by these outfits to qualify for the coveted sticker. All an electrician has to do is simply find the approved product and apply it where required without question. Because of this system, they need not look any further. But should they? Dr. Aronstein has his opinion of UL.
You can quote me on this. Okay, my characterization of UL is they are the tooth fairy of electrical safety. Okay?
That is funny and unfortunate at the same time. I suppose it would be a lot funnier if it wasn't so close to the truth, huh?
Right. So if you believe in the tooth fairy, then you're in good shape on electrical safety. UL is just a human endeavor, okay? And whether it's political companies like GM these days or whatever, mistakes are made in all companies and in all organizations. And UL is not. It has the reputation of being faultless, but it certainly is not.
With a little background information from Dr. Aronstein, here's an outline of how one particular product, the Ideal No. 65 Twister, a twist-on connector, became approved as a permanent repair and, as a result, was installed in the millions in tens of thousands of American and Canadian homes.
It's an inverted pyramid.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to probe what, let's say, testing, ask this nice lady at CSA that you talked to send you the test results on, let's say, the Ideal No. 65. That is the basis for CSA's certification of it. You'll see that perhaps they accepted the UL test, which, by the way, was not done by UL. It was done by Ideal.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And it was only, 20 or 40 samples, okay, with one of the best aluminum wires. So they tested 20 or 40 samples, and that's at the bottom of this pyramid. And then it branches out to, UL lists it, CSA accepts the listing, and you have all the Canadian electrical code. It's okay to use, and the provincial electrical, the hydros accept it, and so on. And it's a big inverted pyramid, but at the bottom of it, the only thing that's supporting this whole thing is a minimal test with 20 or 40 samples.
I'm not going to guess at why UL accepted testing of such a limited scope from the manufacturer of the product, but you can see how in this case it promotes acceptance of it all the way down the line. I am also not sure why CSA based its certification on the UL listing alone. Apparently there is a harmonization of acceptable testing between the American, Canadian, and European governing entities. I believe this amounts to an acceptance of the lowest standards of testing for these electrical products. So, concerned and even desperate owners of aluminum-wired homes now install these devices promoted by electricians and stores who, in turn, rely on the certified status from CSA in Canada, who relied solely on the listed status from UL in the United States, who, in turn, based it on the results of tests of about 20 to 40 devices by the manufacturer, Ideal, themselves. So is it possible this product slipped through a crack to end up in the homes of gullible consumers as a permanent solution and a potentially deadly one? You notice I say permanent solution. You can install these products, but only as a temporary solution, and there is an additional process to doing it that is not advertised by the manufacturers. Also, you have to check every connection repaired by these products in the house at least every 12 months thereafter. I assume that for most, if not all other electrical products, UL and CSA are bang on and their process is fine. I certainly hope so. However, these hazards are in your home, and none of these people are living in your home, are they? So the question is, who do you trust? The UL, CSA, our provincial governments, and the well-meaning electrician trying to sell you on the twist-on connectors? Or Dr. Aronstein, his and others' dedicated research spanning over 40 years, and the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission, who rely heavily on his and their recommendations? I know who I'm going to go with. One of the other reasons I figured I would get back into it was because of what Dr. Aronstein himself said.
My point to you, I guess, is that none of these people, none of the companies, none of the manufacturers, CSA or UL, or contractors or anybody in 30, 40 years that I've been writing stuff and presenting stuff on this, I have never been threatened with a lawsuit. Okay?
Okay.
By any of these people. And the reason is that I choose my words carefully, and I've got the documentation to prove what I say.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that you've got the same.
Yes.
But you are a little bit on a limb in that, and I admire that. You're aggressive, and you know that you have the conviction that you're doing something positive for electrical safety, and I admire that. And however, there is a risk that somebody will not have, with a deeper pocket for lawyers than you have, will hammer down on you and try and stop you. So that's the kind of thing I can prevent. I've got the documentation and will freely share it. Okay.
You know what? I think courage breeds courage, and Dr. Aronstein has been courageous for decades. I thought I should get involved to help him out, and maybe others who want the best knowledge possible to make their homes safe. Dr. Aronstein has done what he does over decades because he is dedicated to the cause of getting the correct information to owners of aluminum-wired homes, and perhaps save some lives. Again, I am humbled to know he has my back, just as he has yours, and feel I have a responsibility to help him spread his powerful information. I am now at the end of the video. I told you of Dr. Aronstein's accreditations and expertise. I showed you how good electricians can get sucked into installing bad products. I also revealed some of the shocking truths of how some electrical products are approved by institutions formed to protect us. The responsibility of what you do with this and the information you're about to receive in the webinar will be in your hands. The torch will be passed to you, and if you can use it to protect your family, then the world is just a little bit better off, isn't it? This is Scott Ryan saying I hope you got something out of this video. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you at the webinar.